And I'm looking forward to preseason games. I mean, I've never said I can't wait for the preseason football games, but not having them last year, and now we're under a new regime here. I think these 3 preseason games they're scheduled to play are going to be, kind of a fun watch. That's going to kind of give us an indication of what this team's going to look like schematically, personnel wise. So I'm looking forward to that first preseason game.
Here's a bit of a surprise. You guys get stuck with me now for the next hour and 40 minutes. Here on Birds 365, one of your M's, Jody Mack, just hopping in. Damn, I couldn't tell you the last time I overslept for anything. I mean, it's been years since I last overslept. I never put my alarm on last night when I went to bed after getting off the air on WIP after a Phillies loss and a Sixers win. It was actually a pretty good night, more good than bad. Yours truly went to bed and I woke up 12 minutes ago, whatever that was, and set it up here as quickly as possible. My apologies, John McMullen. Thank you very much, Mr. Krause. And how are you today, Mr. Kracz?
Hey, Jody, all good. Listen, all good. Things work out sometimes for a reason. It gave me an opportunity before I exit off the show to at least put out there, and we'll follow up as Birds 365 rolls on with the details. But we will be sending to Atlanta. We will be sending one lucky winner, one lucky fan from Birds 365. We will be sending them down to Atlanta for that opening game in September. More details to follow on how you can get engaged to win those tickets. But we're going to give away a pair of tickets for the opening game, hotel accommodations, all kinds of good stuff coming up. And on that note, I'll turn the show back over to all of the experts, Jody, John, and Ed Kracz joining you now.
Thank you very much, Krause. And if you do win and you get to go to Atlanta for that opener, Krause promises not to make you wear that hat. That one was a little loud. I'm a Kanga guy too, but
you
that
just got up. You're not can't be jumped.
Yeah, that's hurt my eyes a little bit. That 15 minutes after rolling out of the sack. John, good morning. Thank you very much again. I apologize. Ed Kracz from SI, our favorite guest, is with us. Ed, how was your night?
Not as late as yours, apparently, Jody. But listen, I love that hat Krause had on there. That to me is a silver lining for you sleeping in, Jody. We would not have seen that hat here on Birds 365 had you been on time.
That is a good point. That is a good hat, Ned. You mentioned that Atlanta trip. No Julio Jones. And maybe you can kick Trey Young in the shins if you're a Sixers fan. I'm guessing you were watching the Sixers last night. That's my guess.
Yeah, I absolutely was. And listen, this Atlanta team's tough. I mean, they gave the Sixers all they could handle for 4 quarters. And if not for Shake Milton, that game might have had a different outcome. I mean, I know Embiid had the 40 points, but, man, Shake came in. They just fallen down by 1 point. He came out firing. It was great to see. But I think it's going to be a fun, entertaining series. I think it's going to go 7 games, to be honest. I
think we all knew it was going to be a Shake one. So I'm going to ask Ed Kracz and Jody McDonald, your favorite Shake? Shake Shack? Shake and Bake? Shake Milton?
Wow.
Which one? Or it could be something else. Favorite Shake?
I got one.
Shake.
I got one.
McDonald's Shake.
A friendly fribble has always been my favorite shake. Outstanding milkshake at Friendly's. You got to get the sprinkles put in before they actually do some people like sprinkles on their shake. I like it chopped up. You got to tell the person, and you sit there and explain it, and they look at you like, yeah, what kind of customer are you? Are you going to tell me how to do my job? Yes. Put the sprinkles in before you actually start the shake. Yeah, I'm a shake snob, as you're finding out. I apologize for that, too. First I show up late, then I prove that I'm a shake snob.
For one day at least, 24 hours, Shake Milton is the correct answer. Probably only in Philadelphia, though.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the DQ shake, just basic chocolate shake. It's that's probably my favorite. I am not a shake snob. But I think this would be a great opportunity for friendlies to maybe do some advertising on Birds 365 here. Get that.
There you go. Yeah, I'm a big Fribble guy.
Yeah.
I will, if I have to, I'll do a tutorial on how to make the best shake. But
and real quick, and we got to talk about the Eagles. But my wife is like you, Jody. She forces me to say, put the sprinkles on the bottom. And I feel like such an a-hole every time I have to do it. Because people look at me like, who is this annoying person? And I feel just like the whole world is looking at me. Evidently, I'm not the only person. So you made me feel bad.
Now, I was just going to say, join my life 365 days a year.
Yeah.
I always feel like an a-hole. So if you got to do it every once in a while, it's tough. You know what?
All right, let's get Ed back to his wheelhouse. Assistant coaches, position coaches, Ed. We got to talk to them, the offensive assistants yesterday, minus Jeff Stoutland, but most of them knew. We knew Aaron Moorhead a little bit. Just your first thoughts on this staff and how it's coming together, and some of the guys who spoke.
Yeah, we're going to get Stout later here on Wednesday, and I'm sure he'll fill it up for us as he always does. Great interview, Jeff Stoutland is. But my first impressions, I like this staff. I think it's a pretty intelligent, real thoughtful staff. I think what I really liked was, I know Brian Johnson didn't exactly fill it up for us in terms of answers to the questions, but that's okay. I think I liked what Kevin Petullo said about Johnson, and it's the same thing Nick Sirianni told us, when he hired Johnson, is bringing him from the college ranks. He's going to bring a fresh set of ideas. And I think I liked what Petullo said about that, is they're kind of picking his brain to see if they can find some cutting edge stuff to kind of throw out there and make defenses react to it. Because Petullo said, when you can find, cutting edge type of things that defenses haven't seen before, then that gives you an advantage, and that makes them have to adjust and kind of catch up to what you're doing. And I think they're kind of relying on Johnson in that department, is to bring some kind of fresh ideas from college to maybe introduce some things to the Eagles offense that NFL defenses haven't seen. We'll see what that's going to be. But overall, I thought the staff, to me, the 5 assistants that we got yesterday impressed me. I think it's a smart group. It's a young, enthusiastic group, and whether or not they can coach on game day and make the in-game adjustments, we're going to have to wait and see about that. But my first impressions of these guys they gave us on Tuesday were pretty good, I think.
Let me ask either of you guys, since you're both beat guys, I'm not. This is year 2 of you guys having to do your job virtually. I don't remember this particular day last year where they made all the assistant coaches virtually available. This had to be a little bit of a different experience for you guys. Years gone by, you just try and grab them outside the locker room. You set something up if you can get a one-on-one with them. But this is a little different than anything you've ever done before. The Eagles, I'm sure the Eagles are trying to be courteous and they're trying to let you guys do your job. But why do you think they decided to make this time of year the time for you guys to have access to their assistant coaches?
Well, that Ed explained, but they always have these days. Typically, we don't get to talk to the assistant coaches coming off the field or anything like that. So generally, pre-pandemic days, we would have them all at one time in the facility, in the indoor bubble or next to the practice field, and we'd get them all in one day. Maybe offense, defense split. Last year, they did the same thing via Zoom. I believe, and Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was in season last year, but the assistants weren't new. So they gave them a little bit earlier this year, which is good. And, Zoom stinks, but it is what it is.
Yeah, the NFL requires assistant coaches, position coaches to be made available. I believe it's twice a year.
I think it's once a month. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, I know we've gotten them, I think, twice. I know we usually get them during training camp at some point. We'll probably get them again, as training camp unfolds, in July and August. And they make them available, usually around this time of year. Like John said, I think it was a little earlier last year, but this year it felt awfully late. I mean, they brought these guys in, January and February, and we're just kind of getting our eyes and ears on them, 6 months later. But, look, better late than never, because I thought, typically, the assistants to me, especially after they've been here a while, it's not a real big, to me, it's not a real big deal. I don't think. I know to others it is, but yesterday was kind of a big deal because they are so new, because they are so young. And we wanted to hear what they had to say. And I thought, Jamal Singleton, the running back coach, was very good. And even Aaron Moorhead, one of the few returning coaches, along with Jeff Stoutland, really had a lot of good things to say. One thing I liked what he said about the receiving corps was, and this was kind of interesting. He says, we want to be the young guys. We want to be the happy guys. We want to walk around with the energy and the smiles on our faces because that receiving group is so young. And he said, there's grumpy, there's going to be a lot of grumpy people in the building.
The offensive line room.
Yeah, and then he mentioned that, but before he said the O-line room, I'm thinking, I wonder if he's talking about Alshon Jeffrey as one of those old guys. So, that was kind of interesting to hear him say that, they want to be the provide the juice all day because they're a young group and because they have the fresh legs, and they want to be the guys that bring the smiles.
Yeah, and it's interesting, one of the things, Ed, and I wrote about it at SI.com. You can read me and Ed at SI.com /NFL/Eagles. But, Jason Michaels, the new tight ends coach, I asked him about Zach Ertz. Now, he's got no power. He's not no assistant coach in this league is really involved in player personnel procurement. But I found it interesting that he wants to keep those avenues of communication open, Ed, just in case. We're here. Jody likes to say, where are we, Jody? June 9th. Zach Ertz is still here. At some point, the rubber's got to hit the road. And if Jason Michael's got to coach him, he's got to communicate with him. So he's keeping those lines of communication open.
Yeah, I thought it was a good question. No doubt. I mean, it was interesting to hear him say that he's keeping those communication lines open. And, exploring that tight end position even further, everybody talks about this cornerback 2 position. Who's going to play cornerback 2 behind Slay? I mean, I think a very underrated or, kind of an unsold storyline so far has been the backup tight end. I mean, who is going to fill that role behind Dallas Goedert? This team wants to play some 12 personnel, not as much as Doug Peterson and his group did, but, Nick Sirianni played 12 personnel in Indianapolis, had some good tight ends there. But who's going to fill that number 2 tight end role behind Goddard? If it's
I hope it's Tyree Jackson. I just want to see it. I want to see that guy on the field. It is amazing just to see him there on the sidelines. We were there, was it Friday? Last Friday for the OTA practice. Man, he is big, Ed Kracz. 6'7", 250, 255. And they say Dallas Goedert is 6'5", and I've stood next to Dallas. He looks every bit as 6'5". He dwarfed him. If they say it's only 2 inches, he looked like his little brother type of situation. Now, I don't think he's going to be on the field. He used to play. And by the way, I can't imagine this guy playing quarterback. Jody, you watched him play quarterback at Buffalo. Imagine that guy playing quarterback. The size of that position is so intriguing to me. But, yeah, he's not going to be Zach Ertz. So I'll get the platform back to you on the backup tight ends.
He did a great job of shedding tackles when he would drop back for Buffalo. He was that big as a quarterback, pretty inaccurate with his arm, and that's why he didn't make it in the league. But if you tell me he's added at quarterback, I guess he probably played at 218, 220. He wasn't 240 or 250, so he's put on weight to become a tight end, but he was that big. I did watch him play at Buffalo. Here's the tight end question I got for you, Ed Kracz. Will you keep throwing this guy's name out there and the Eagles don't end up making any move? Well, Richard Rodgers was pretty good last year. He did a nice job as the TE3 coming off the bench and filling in when guys were hurt, either Goddard or Ertz in front of him. We're all waiting for a cornerback signing. there's a good chance there'll be another tight end signing. None of the assistant coaches gave you any hints as to when we could be seeing that, right?
No, I mean, look, it was tried. One of the reporters tried to ask Jason Michael that question about Richard Rodgers and, hey, that's Howie's department. They're all going to kind of shrug that off and say, got to talk to Howie or even Nick Sirianni about that. But, Rodgers did do well. Clearly last year when both tight ends were hurt, Ertz and Goddard weren't around for a couple games. And, Rodgers stepped in and did well. He's got limitations for sure. I think the Eagles right now would kind of prefer to see once camp starts what they have behind him. I'm sure they already have some kind of ideas in their mind, and maybe they do feel at this point that we need another tight end. So let's keep our eyes open over these next few weeks to see what we can do. But Tyree Jackson's not going to be the answer, as tall as he is. And I noticed that at the first practice, guys, when I rolled out the OTAs first day, I'm just looking at this guy, and he's wearing, I think he's number 80, and I'm looking at my roster. I'm like, who the heck is this guy? I'm there, and it's Tyree Jackson. So, he's certainly an eyeful when you see him. He's a big dude. But, Jason Michael said, look, there's a lot for him to learn, just coming out of a stance, left-hand stance, right-hand stance, learning how to run a pattern. He's a work in progress, and he's practice squad at best, in my opinion. I think maybe someone to keep an eye on is this undrafted free agent, Jack Stoll, who Jason Michael talked about, really liking his football IQ. He's a good blocker. He did a good job at Nebraska. So maybe Stoll is going to be this guy that they think enough of that maybe he can kind of give him some snaps as the backup, tight end. I don't know. You wonder about Hakeem Butler, someone trying to make the transition from wide receiver, another really big guy, about 6'5". But can he block? Because I think the backup tight end's job in this offense is going to be a lot of run blocking, in my opinion, and maybe going out for patterns. But I think this backup tight end's going to need to know how to block. And I'm not sure Butler can do that. Maybe Jason Kroom can. He's been around a little bit, but Jack Stoll, to me, he's done it at Nebraska. He could kind of be the front runner to be the backup tight end at this point.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually wrote about Jack as well about a week or 10 days ago, Ed, and I think he's a front runner too. It's hard to talk about an undrafted guy as a front runner, but the people on here, you're right about Tyree Jackson. That was kind of tongue in cheek, but I do look at Logan Thomas in Washington and say, that's the template. That's what they're going for, but it's going to be a multi-year process if it works to shift over to tight end. More important part, which I think you hit on, look, the reason they want Dallas Goedert, he's a great blocker, but they want to take advantage of him detached from the formation as a receiver. To do that, you need a blocker. So I think you're on to something with Jack Stoll because he's capable of doing that. I do want to shift to Jamal Singleton because to me, and I told you this off the air, he was the most impressive guy to me. My biggest concern about Nick Sirianni, and I've said this pretty consistently, if you look at Sean McVay in Los Angeles, they gave him Wade Phillips to start. If you look at Matt Nagy in Chicago, they gave him Vic Fangio to start. You always have this, Matt LaFleur had Mike Pettin. You always have this veteran sounding board. And maybe Jamal Singleton isn't a former head coach or people look at him as a future head coach, but he's a guy with some experience, and he just commands the room. It's a Zoom room, but I'm really impressed by that guy. Did you get some of those same feelings about Jamal Singleton?
Well, I did. And, he's got the assistant head coach role, and whatever that is. He was asked exactly what's that going to entail, and he really didn't have an answer for that. I guess they're still kind of, feeling along what that role is going to be. But, you're right. I think he will be a sounding board. And, you mentioned those coaches with their veteran sounding boards. I mean, Peterson had Schwartz, back the past few years. But, I was impressed with Singleton. I mean, he's an Air Force graduate. He's a bright guy. He's been around the league for a number of years, coaching running backs. And I love that drill that he put
that drill was great too.
Yeah. We saw that Friday at the link. They had that series of dummy bags laid flat, and they gave the running backs the ball with a cord attached to it, and they had the running backs had to run that circuit through the bags, showing their footwork, and all the while Singleton would try to yank on that cord to pull the ball out of the running back's
And
hand.
by the way, and on the back end, they had that kid behind with a boxing glove on a stick, prodding him as he's doing it. I thought it was great.
And a lot of guys didn't make it through. And if you fumbled the ball or the ball bobbled, you had to start over. And Sirianni was standing right there watching it, and it was right in front of us.
Yeah.
I shot a lot of great video of it that's on our site.
Yeah.
But yeah, they'd have to start over if Singleton would pull that ball and it would bobble or come loose. Start over, and Sirianni's like, lock that elbow. You have to lock that elbow. But I like how they're preaching the fundamentals and technique. That's what this whole 3-week OTA period was about, was fundamentals, technique, improving the craft. You could argue that, it would have been nice to get some team drills in there to see how they perform in 7-on-7s, 11-on-11s. But, apparently that's going to wait until training camp. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. It remains to be seen.
Hey, before you jump in, Jody, real quick, because I want to talk about that drill. I don't notice if you saw Elijah Holyfield, who's Evander Holyfield's son, for people that don't know, really powerful guy. He was the only one who could hold on to the football. But I don't know if you noticed that his eyes kept going down, and he was looking at the football, trying to hold it into his big, powerful arms, which he could do. But Singleton was right on him. He's like, you got to have your eyes up or you're going to get whacked. And the minute he put his eyes up, he'd lose the football. So I just thought it was a phenomenal drill. And I'm in love with Jamal Singleton. Platonic love, but I think he's a great coach.
Yeah, I'm in love with Elijah Holyfield. I mean, last year I was screaming for them to give him a chance. I would like to see what he can do as that short yardage type back, that big back that can hammer, between the tackles. Whether or not he ever gets the chance, who knows? You certainly didn't give him a good endorsement there with, him with his eyes down. I didn't notice that. That's good eyes by you. I didn't see that part of the drill, but I guess, he's going to have a hard time making the team. A lot of competition in that running back room.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Holyfield makes it this year. Sorry to say, Ed, but
I know.
I want to go back over to the defensive side of the ball. Again, you guys talked to assistant coaches only yesterday, not the coordinator. Jonathan Gannon wasn't there. He's been a very interesting guy, and you guys have seen the minimal amount of workouts and gathering time that you have. We still don't know what kind of system that he's going to run. And I don't think we will know until Eagles get out there, shoot. I don't know that we will through preseason. They might try and just keep everything under wraps until the regular season actually hits. Did you get any more hints from what Gannon's system is going to look like from any of the defensive assistant coaches that you got the chance to talk to yesterday?
Well, we didn't get them yesterday, but I'll get in.
Yeah, we'll get the defensive guys later. But yeah, Gannon spoke last week, and the players really haven't hinted at anything, and Gannon certainly didn't. And I think they're just kind of trying guys out at different spots. Like we saw Avonte Maddox, right, John, line up at safety during one of the practice sessions. So I think, what they're trying to do is they're trying to look at guys in different spots. And, of course, they've got video all over the field to film practices, players. So now they're going to take what they put together these 3 weeks, and I'm sure these assistants are poring over that tape to see what guys do well, and then probably going to decide on what system they're going to play. I certainly don't have any hints. I mean, maybe John does. I think you look at, the past, and obviously Mike Zimmer was a big influence on Gannon, so you have to maybe look at some of Zimmer's past defenses and his philosophy. And I think, John, you wrote about this recently. So, that's kind of all we really have to go on, I think, is that resume of Gannon working with Zimmer, and the defenses he crafted and the philosophies that Zimmer uses. But as far as what the Eagles are going to play specifically, I'm not sure, they know at this point. I think they're still kind of looking at what they have on hand, because they're on record as saying, we're going to put our scheme together with the players we have. We're not going to try to have a scheme and fit players into that scheme, kind of like Jim Schwartz did. And why you saw some guys like an Eric Rowe, a second-round pick, kind of fall out of favor It's not going to be that rigid. At least that's what we're led to believe. So they're going to try to see exactly what the players can do before they determine a scheme.
Yeah, my concern, and Jody and I had Chris Russell on. That's what I wrote about. He gave us some backdoor intel because he's really close to Ryan Kerrigan. So Ryan Kerrigan talked to us. He didn't give us much. He was like, I don't know. I just got here. We've been talking to the defensive coaches. He told Chris, oh, no, you're going to be inside. You're going to be that stand-up edge rusher. You're going to be in the A gaps. And I start to think of myself, well, that's Mike Zimmer putting stand-up rushers in the A gap. So I think Jonathan Gannon's holding out on us a little bit. My concern, though, Ed, is Ryan Kerrigan isn't Anthony Barr. I mean, people can talk about the blitzing part of it, but the whole point of having Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks is they bail out more than they blitz, and they're great coverage linebackers, and they can stop the run. So that's my concern. I think that's my concern with Nick Sirianni as well, with Frank Reich's offense, with, we had heard that Zach Ertz story, if Zach comes back, he's going to play 35% of the snaps. Well, Nick, you're telling me you're going to play the best players. If Zach Ertz is here and he's better than Greg Ward or Travis Fulgham or JJ Arcega-Whiteside, why are you only playing the second tight end 35% of the time? So I think there has been some contradictory stuff coming out here. So it's going to be interesting to see this as it moves forward.
Yeah, that story you're talking about, that when you talk to Chris Russell, who's a great guy, good friend of mine, it's going to run. It was posted this morning on SI.com site if you want to take a look at that. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting story because Kerrigan did mention that he may line up over center. He might line up outside. I mean, that's kind of a joker role for him. So, there could be some 3-4 principles involved with how they play him, and some 4-3 stuff where he lines up on the end. I mean, I think Kerrigan's going to be a pretty important part of this defense this season. I really do.
And did you get the feeling that the relationship between these assistant coaches, and they're part of the staff, with the entire roster as is, they're still getting to know each other, and they spent the time that they spent together in these gatherings, quasi practices, drill times, describe it however you want. Now they go away for a couple of weeks, and then they come back and they have to hit the ground running, and you have to get ready for a first season. Did the assistant coaches feel comfortable that they got their message across to the guys that they've had limited time with to be able to come back when camp opens to hit the ground running? How is the communication going to continue during this downtime before camp reopens?
Yeah, I'm not sure of that. I mean, I guess we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, you like to think that they had the communication established, the message delivered during these 3 weeks. We'll see. We'll see if it continues to resonate over this, almost 2 months of a downtime period, where I don't think the coaches can have any contact with the players during this period. So I don't know if that rule has changed at all, but this is true downtime for the players. And when they come back, the coaches say they're going to know who did what, if they did as well as they could have during this period. So it's really on the players at this point to kind of hopefully have soaked up that message. I will say I think it's going to help this team, and I'm looking forward to preseason games. I mean, I've never said I can't wait for the preseason football games, but not having them last year, and now we're under a new regime here. I think these 3 preseason games they're scheduled to play are going to be, kind of a fun watch. That's going to kind of give us an indication of what this team's going to look like schematically, personnel-wise. So I'm looking forward to that first preseason game. I don't know when it is, but, I haven't circled it yet on the calendar, but it's going to be in August sometime. And there's the 2 open practices that they're going to have, which they did not have, obviously, last year. So August 8th and August 22nd are the 2 open practices for fans to kind of get their eyes on what this team could look like in the fall.
And by the way, Ed, they locked in the Jody Mack Bowl, a tradition like no other. The final preseason game, Eagles up the turnpike against the New York Jets. I think it's August 27th, but you're right. Those preseason games are going to feel like a breath of fresh air. I never thought I'd say that in my life. Now, before I let you go, last one for me, I got to bring up JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I know Eagles fans are going to hate me for this, but look, he's got one more opportunity. I think Aaron Moorhead, he talked for about 20 minutes. Nobody mentioned this guy. He is an afterthought. We're talking about Greg Ward and Travis Fulgham before we talk about, remember when he got drafted in 2019, he was going to be the heir apparent to Alshon Jeffrey. He was going to be the big part of this receiving corps, and all of a sudden he bails. And think about the dominoes of that. Then you got to draft Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor fails. Then you got to draft Devontae Smith. It's wide receiver, premium pick. Can they really turn the corner at that position? Is JJ involved, and do all the pieces fit into place because of Devontae Smith?
Listen, I was all in on JJ Arcega-Whiteside last summer. I thought he had a good camp in the few practices we were able to watch, and I thought, you know what, this guy has turned the corner. He's going to have a good year, and then the season happens and he does nothing. So this year, I'm all out on JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I'm going to go the opposite way, and I think he's out of chances. I'm not sure he makes this team. I think Devontae Smith is the final piece to whatever puzzle they're building here. I will say this about Arcega-Whiteside is, he's a good kid. I enjoy talking to him. He seems like a very nice person. But something, I think he puts too much pressure on himself, feels too much stress or something. He really needs a good, maybe sports psychologist to kind of work through these issues. And that was kind of my concern last year when Aaron Moorhead, and I asked him about that Tuesday about Jalen Reagor. Moorhead said that he puts a lot of pressure on himself being a number 1 round pick. So I'm hoping that this too much stress thing doesn't overwhelm Jalen Reagor and he goes down the same path as Arcega-Whiteside. I don't think he will. But listen, the mind's a funny thing. If you're not clean in the mind and you're not clear in your head, that can impact you. And I think that's kind of what's gotten the better of Arcega-Whiteside, because he can play. He showed that at Stanford. He just hasn't been able to make that transition to the NFL. And as much as I'd like to see him land a roster spot, I'm all out on him this year. I don't think he does.
All right. If you don't have Ed Kracz in the corner, you're screwed, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Yeah. All right, last one for me, Eddie. In talking to the assistant coaches yesterday, did any of them actually admit to losing to Nick Sirianni in rock, paper, scissors? Because I firmly believe he's going in the tank. I don't think he's as bad as his record shows. I think he's doing it to bolster others' confidence. Did anyone admit they lost to him?
No.
By the way, Jody, before you chime in, Ed, I would love to ask that question. And this is a perfect example of why Zoom sucks, because you can't waste your question on that. But I want to know. Because I've said, for all of Nick, hey, I think Nick is a great guy, all that. He doesn't win anything. I've said it. He loses to everybody. Mr. Competition, you got to win something. I want to ask that question, but I can't, because you can't waste it on Zoom.
Yeah, that's right.
You can waste it here on Birds 365, though, John. I can have your back, buddy.
Yeah. But you might be onto something there, Jody. Maybe he's intentionally throwing these rock, paper, scissors games to build confidence in his team. Yeah, that sounds like a big expose that we should be writing.
Master psychologist Nick Sirianni. You guys will learn.
Okay.
Eddie Kracz, thank you very much for hopping on board. Again, my apology to John and all of our Stream Nation out there for getting to the party late. But I'm glad I got here in time to talk to you. Thanks, buddy.
Better late than never, Jody. Thanks, guys.
Exactly right. That's Ed Kracz, our favorite guest, John Sports Illustrated running buddy, here with us on Birds 365. All right, we'll come back. I got a couple more things I got to run by John, since I kind of missed the start of the show. And he and I need to catch up on a couple things before we get a chance to talk to Gary Myers, Hall of Fame voter, decade-long NFL writer, used to do TV. Some of you diehard football fans will remember from hopping on TV as well. Gary Myers, excellent NFL writer and author, is going to join us later here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.